So with the Heartfelt Foundation, we really we're very committed to supporting people in our church and people in general, especially going through the challenges with aging, either with ourselves or our loved ones, and want to let people know that they're not alone. There are answers out here, there's support, and that we can do this together. So the floor is open. Anybody has, I'd love if anybody has questions that they want some answers to, or dilemmas they're going through that they could use some support from the group. And once we get through any questions, then the floor will be open to anything you guys want to share. It might be tips that someone watching this later on would like to know, things that you've learned that you'd want to share for posterity. So we'll open the floor to any questions or dilemmas, concerns that you want to bring up at first.
Well, I'd be glad to share a little bit.
Sure.
Cheryl, this is the first time I've come. I've seen your offerings, and I'm a nurse. I worked in geriatrics years ago, and now I am one. But
yeah.
I'm a joyful one most of the time, and I certainly search for more of that, and but I'm very attuned into the support that's so important for us, and I'm grateful for your initiating and being brought in to Heartfelt with this offering. And I'm in Alabama right now. I came into the movement in Michigan, and I'm in Michigan half the year and Alabama the other half of the year. And so that's one way that I support myself, is staying in the sun. I need to have the sun. I know it. My mom before me was my best teacher for moving into elderliness. She went into depression in the Michigan gray weather and had to go on drugs that didn't help her. And that was not a good sign later. It went to Alzheimer's and dementia. So I'm 18 years behind her. She was 18 when she had me. And she showed me the things that could be coming, and indeed they have, indeed they have. So she's been my teacher, but I've been in holistic health for a long time and prevented a lot of symptoms, and I have even reversed my dementia first symptoms twice by using Dr. Bradenson's program, The End of Alzheimer's, and engaging in that brain health program. So anyway, I just thought I'd like to participate, just because I think that we're all marvelous people at this age, and with the wisdom we carry, and that we have a lot to offer each other. And I'm glad to participate in that. So that's why I'm here. So and to meet others of us who are stepping into this experience.
I love that. Thank you so much, Judith. I'm really glad that you're here. And it would be interesting to hear more about the kind of things that you implemented from his program.
Okay. Yeah.
That worked for you, either now or later. What I think that would be another great topic.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it used to be people were afraid of getting cancer. That was like the number one fear, right? And now they've got a lot of treatment for cancer. So we're thinking, well, if we get it, maybe there'll be something, it'll be cured. But for Alzheimer's is now, that's on it's not necessarily a scientific research project that I've done. It's just I think that's um, I think people, because there's no cure necessarily, right? Except you found some things that
No,
are
not
helping
right
you, but
anymore.
there's
Not right
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. So I'd be interested in hearing that, because there's uh, you know
Yeah,
there's you know there's things that we can do, certainly, and you, it sounds like you found some things, but people
yeah,
still fear that, especially with some things that are normal aging, like, oh, I spend a lot of my time walking around looking for my glasses. Where'd I put my reading glasses? Right? And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
am I losing it?
yeah,
And I say, like, if you lose your keys or misplace your keys, that's normal. But if you forget what your keys are for,
yeah,
then something
yeah,
else might be going on. So yeah, if you want to share the, like, what did you implement that helped your memory and processing?
yeah. Well, first of all, that was my number one fear, because I watched my mom, I watched her
Hmm.
sister, and then I was learning. I'm a practitioner for eating for your blood type. So I had
Hmm.
learned reversing inflammation with my food back in 1998 is when I started. His first books came out in 96. So I was already doing that, and know that that was very significant for me because my mom had severe arthritis. And when I learned about that, I had severe arthritis throughout my body. So I started my blood type. I did it 100% within a week. All my inflammation, my huge knuckles were gone. It was gone. It cleared. I knew what not to eat that was particularly inflammatory for my blood type A. Not the same for O, not the same for B.
Hmm.
I'm the A, just like
Hmm.
my mom. So sure enough, that was the opening to the path. And then and then after that, I had a first episode with her first symptoms that I recognized. I was using words wrongly. I would start to say a word, but it wasn't the word I wanted, but it started with the same letter. There was a particular name for that. And I went, oh, wow. Well, then I learned about natural hormones, bioidentical hormones. And that was in 2007. And then I got on these bioidentical hormones, and voila, a huge cloud left off, and discovered several things that were nurturing for me according to the need for having a hormone replacement therapy that's healthy, a bioidentical one, not the synthetic one from your doctor who already knows the research isn't good, but the one that you have to get somewhere else. But my medical doctor here in Birmingham does bioidentical hormone therapy. So, and that's a pellet that goes in my hip every 4 months, these tiny pellets. And that has been amazing for me. So then then I went into later doing the symptoms again. And I went, I had a program for brain health, and it was Dr. Bradenson's protocol. He's been on Dr. Oz. Maybe some of you know the book, The End of Alzheimer's. And as soon as I saw that book, being a nurse, I signed up for this book before it came out. This is my biggest fear. Alzheimer's, like my mom. She went right through the years of dementia into Alzheimer's. And she was leading my way for me, leading what I needed to find. And so when I saw that and discovered right here in Birmingham was one of his resident students, and started a brain health program, I signed up, my husband and I both. So here I am learning about and having lab work done. Now, the Dr. Braden's book is about 36 different ways that enables dementia and Alzheimer's. And these are all multiple researchers. And so he's created a conglomerate and has presented this book. And he speaks of it like having 36 holes in your roof. And if you got 36 holes in the roof and the water's leaking through, and you start patching them up, you find out that you don't have as much leakage and you have more function, and you got your roof over your head getting patched up. So 36 ways can be revealed that discovers how the pathways to the dementia happen in your brain. And then the lab work you get done to go with that shows which one you have. Which ones do you have? And then I have that lab work that showed me. And number one was always inflammation. That's the first prevention and reversal of all dis-ease, is finding ways to reverse inflammation. And the simple way is eating for your blood type. And I've taught this class for many, many years. And I've seen people reverse incredible issues. But that was one of them. And then they were very happy to know I was on bioidentical hormones, because hormones is another one, because all of our hormones, our thyroid hormones, our pancreatic hormones, our liver hormones, our adrenal hormones, all of those are conductors of the functions in our body. So I think we all need our own endocrinologist, but they don't know how to use natural repair. I don't know what's going to happen about that. But anyway,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
more functional, and he created a whole array of seeing if you can find one of those people is very ideal. And looking at the whole body and how to nurture those issues. And so yes, and then I came into the symptoms again, discovered I hadn't completed the protogram. I hadn't done the toxins, finding out what toxins, environmental toxins are in my body. So since then, I have done that. And that was a year of a lot of cleansing with herbals, fulvic acid and other cleanser items. And for me, being a blood type A, I'm most prone to heart disease, cancer, and dominant in my family. My parents both have cancer, and heart disease is very prone to blood type A, and diabetes. Diabetes is the other one. And anyway, so watching my diet was really very key on what to do. And then I found out I had high glyphosates in my body. Well, glyphosates are very toxic to our brain and neurological function. And I had 5 times what could be possibly safe to have glyphosates, all the ones from Monsanto pesticide. So it was pest and other toxic elements that were found in my body. And then by doing this year-long cleanse, and it was stressful on my body. I did lose quite a bit of weight. I was not that overweight. And I picked up a parasite worm on the way, a big parasite worm on the way. And I just blessed it in terms of, I don't have to be in chemotherapy. I'm going to be going through this cleansing, and it was a lot of stool releasing and a lot of working hard to build up my energy at the same time with a lot of nutritional drinks. So I got into a program to do that. So you do want to work it with somebody, but that was the avenue. But some of it was simple things, the 36 ways. One of them is your copper and your lead balance. Simple things, but they were meaningful things. And some of them were just very accessible to do in your home. And in fact, there was a group that had not even known the Bredesen protocol that just nutritionally really did good things for themselves and were already doing a lot of healthy stuff. So it was like bringing it all forward to read that book, The End of Alzheimer's and His Follow-up. So that's a nutshell.
That's great. You're right. I mean, it sounds like it was a long process of different things and tests and being really committed to cleaning up your environment, which, as we age, when we were younger, we could get away, it looked like we could get away with eating, all kind of food or not exercising or, staying up all night or whatever that was.
Yeah.
And, I've seen it. It's, uh, so I've been a geriatric care manager for over 20 years. So I've seen what happens down the line with people when they don't move or when they uh, kind of don't uh, get into the healthy, um, certain healthy lifestyles. But then there's always the exception, right? George Burns smokes forever and is fine. So, whatever it is for us. But I'm glad you brought up the book and the different protocols. Those are options for people. I've taken clients to there's a world famous neurologist in Southern California that I've brought clients to, and they wait a year to get in to see him for Alzheimer's type of conditions. And basically, what he offers is take some vitamins, zinc, vitamin D, fish oil, get your sleep, keep exercising, learn new things, uh, decrease the sugar. So, those type of things that we all, those are kind of things we know to do, but may not be doing. So it sounds like this book offers some additional things that, we can all do. And it's great to start before anything happens. Before anything happens, it's fascinating to me as humans. Sometimes we, after we get a diagnosis, we're like, okay, I'm going to clean things up. But, just maybe an encouragement to look at things and see if there's anything you can clean up while you're healthy, to be even healthier. All right. So anybody have any questions or comments or sharing anything with our beautiful group here? John.
Hey, uh, audio okay, Cheryl?
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, so very happy to be with this group and very happy to be here with Cheryl, who we think is number one, and I mean that quite sincerely, just from anything I've experienced. Cheryl's the best in this area um, on just so many levels, right? And that I think are particularly appreciated by this group. And I was enjoying what Judith was sharing. That's certainly something we're working with here. And I was just thinking of a lot of things, like Judith was talking about her mom and like being just 18 years behind her mom, and I'm 19 years behind my mom, and so one of my goals was to not die of cancer at 66. So I got our 66th birthday coming up in March, and so well, I think we're doing good, and I think we're actually pretty well ahead of the curve. But there's also this awareness that either of us could be gone tomorrow very quickly. It's just so I don't want to get cocky or about it. Um, I do. I think probably the lowest hanging fruit to get rid of is eliminate sugar. I think sugar is a drug; it's not a food. That's my simple statement.
That's
And
what we have to do.
and I
It's
think it's
not
probably the
food.
universal drug of choice on planet Earth. It is in all its forms. So I and I remember the rat study where the rats learned the maze. They gave them sugar and they couldn't find their way out of the maze. It's just yeah, it kind of goes on from there. So now I could go on a rant and I won't, because people usually hate listening to that.
Mm-hmm.
So right, Lori?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
it's
but
so
it
silly.
what it's going for, that's just like, I think that's like the thing JR says, like, don't take drugs if you want to do soul transcendence. We don't judge drugs, and that's the way I see about sugar is the crack of the food world. So get rid of sugar, and
Mm-hmm.
then you open up to the other 99% of what's available to you. And for us, that's been the attunement to the foods. There's very complex routes, as Judith has described some of them, and excellent in her case, I think, um, towards finding what you need to do. We've done, God knows, I did decades of detoxing through high level vegetable juicing, I felt like I reversed aging in my body, and and just all my chronic health fatigue. And there are people like Nancy Carter that just, I remember Nancy taking care of her dad, when he was in his 90s, and going to visit him, and he was awesome. And Nancy's probably even more awesome. I never got to meet her dad personally, just through Nancy's descriptions of her weekly visits. And we were all in the now basement, right? And remember, OT, I think was his name, OT Carter. It just popped back into my head. And so, yeah, like Nancy probably does a lot of other great stuff too. I mean, including just being a great person, but I look at that, and I, I had different genetics. I had my 97, my grandmother lived to be 97 on one side. And then I had my mom, and I kind of looked more like my mom. So I was thinking, don't want to get cancer. So anyway, sugar was the low hanging fruit. The guy that got the Nobel Prize in the early 1930s was discovered that cancer cells metabolize sugar. So I didn't want to be getting chemo and jello in the hospital. It just didn't seem to make sense to me.
Mhm.
So I, but what it's really going towards is not that. That's just like step A. And step B through Z is really about what we've discovered about attuning to what's right for your body. So that what we're doing is a gesture of loving. We're loving our body like we love anyone else or anything else in our ministry. So everything we put in our mouth then becomes an act of worship. It becomes an act of blessing. And that may sound stilted or overdone, but it's really simple. For me, it was like extreme suffering with eating things that weren't working for me. So it wasn't just an act of blessing as a altruistic concept, but it's like, oh my God, it feels so good to feel good. So that was the big payoff. And like we've been fermenting our foods because we found that gut health and brain health, this is not the second brain, but really the primordial brain in our gut. And so doing the things that, not just little pills that they sell at Whole Foods for a lot of money, but eating probiotic foods. We ferment so many things and eat them. And it just keeps getting better and better. It's like that approach. But that's just, again, maybe, like JR says, the 10% and the 90, we're just dealing in the 10% there. The 90% is that web of life and spirit. But then again, as soon as I say that, I go, oh, but the 10% is part of it. It's all one big web of life, so that we're just in balance with everything. And the other thing I was thinking of is like making everything is perfect exactly the way it is. Like when Lori got Alzheimer's, it was like, oh my God, But now it's like, oh no, that's just what some doctors at UCLA said, she has Alzheimer's. I don't disagree with them, but it's just a word. And what it really is an altered state of consciousness. Lori's a lot of fun, She has fun things to say and does interesting things and sees things differently. And so everything's all good. And I remember what JR said at seminars when babies would start crying. He'd say, hey, that's just free energy. You can use it. And so it used to really affect me when, we'll just say, somebody would start behaving in a way that might involve some loud verbalizations or other things, or saying things using language that we used to associate with truck drivers or longshoremen, and I might seem to be the target of that, and then you have like this sweet and just innocent lovingness. And these various personalities could show up at any time. And this is really a recent revelation of just like, oh, hey, it's free energy. And in our prayer groups, our intercessory prayer groups, that was like something that we started thinking of like, oh, we could see what's happening in the world right now is really awful, and all the anger and whatever that's entity forms, whoever's, feeding this, call Naran Jan, you know, or we can call it free energy. And how can we redirect this free energy? And JR's done some seminars about that, like go to the place that you judge the most, the angry one, the whatever one, and, turn that energy into the light. And so we're just seeing everything as being more of a perfection on purpose. And how can we use that? How can we see it as our friend?
The big pieces.
Yeah.
And so that way, things may change that we think we want to change, but if they don't change, well, that's the perfect answer to the question. Then it's just fine. So it's a very happy place to live in. My other quick thing I'll just throw in before I time myself out here is JR's seminar, Where Do We Get Our Nutritional Energy? I think that's like been a Bible for us. It was his closing seminar at the first hat training down at Baraka in 1982. It's on That Which Is. And the real clincher, I think, in that seminar, besides cells don't die, and, I mean, that was the real key. Like, well, if cells don't die, why should we die? And he does say that in another seminar, that you can live forever. But in that, this seminar, he says 20, 30,000 years ago, it was unheard of that anyone died before 500 years old. And at 2,000 years old, they had a bunch of kids running around. And so, what's the difference between, we'll just call it maybe Atlantis, what was going on there, and what we're doing now? So, I just took the premise of, just as a wild, crazy idea, maybe we just need to do everything the opposite of what we're doing that makes 80 to 90 or 100 a super long life, because we're, according to that 20, 30,000 years ago timeline, we're dying in infancy. And so that's what our little experiment out here in nature, where we live on a mountain, linked low deuterium water that comes from snow melt, and, right from the creek over yonder, right? And breathe this air that, remarkably, we're just a half hour from the LA freeway network, and this is better air quality than places I've been in the high Sierras. So it's just, but not everybody's going to do that. And I want to emphasize that what we started in the bulk of, particularly the detoxification process, was when we were living down in Santa Monica. So the things we're doing, anybody can do everywhere. We're just lucky that it's easier up here, and nature certainly does heal us. And that might mean, taking your shoes off and walking on the grass next to your sidewalk, because that works. And, some people say, oh, it has Roundup on it. Well, get your hose and spray it off and then walk on it. There's always a simple solution. Anyway, that's our.
Thank you, John.
Sorry if
thanks for sharing your process of aging and growing in wisdom over the years. So thank you very much. Summer, you've had your hand up and been so patient.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate you. I just want to share something very short. I'm totally fine. I take no medication. I'm like, I live out in the boonies and blah, blah, blah. I'm fine. However, since we're on the subject of dementia, this morning when I opened my drawer to get out the toothpaste to brush my teeth, I found in the drawer a piece of used dental floss, which made me laugh because, I put my dental floss back in the drawer after I used it. That's a little crazy. I just wanted to share that. I thought it was so funny.
Sounds like you were distracted when you put it away. I'm glad you're doing so well, Summer. Now tonight
What?
when I use my dental floss, I'm going to be thinking about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, it was so funny. And it's like, who can I call to tell this to? This is really so funny. That is getting really sad when you put your used dental floss back in the drawer. Okay, so I shared it with you guys.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I
You're
love that.
You're welcome.
I love that we can get together once a week and just share fun stuff like that. Look what I did today. Maritza.
Thank you, Cheryl, for hosting these. In your talk last week, you talked about hospice and my experience with my mom. She passed away recently, and a couple of weeks before she passed away, she was declared in hospice, we'll say. And I'd like to just say that was it was a great opportunity for the whole family to come visit and share with, just be there with her, say their goodbyes, I would say, from this physical plane. And I think it was a heartwarming experience to how this whole thing took place, how all her how her children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren went about doing that. So we lived with Rinaldo's parents for about a year and a half, and during that time, Rinaldo's grandmother, was bedridden for many, many years, or I'm going to say, I don't know how many years, maybe it was a couple of years, but she was not really conscious. And I was present when in the house when she passed away. It was actually, I remember it so clearly, it was in the middle of the day, and our son, who's 32 now, he was like, I don't know, he was like 4, to give you an idea how long ago that was. But I had never experienced somebody dying, and I was in the home when this took place. And there was my mother-in-law who was away. Her caretaker was home, and my father-in-law. And so all I remember is I went to go give Jorel a bath into the bathtub. As I walked by her room, there was silence. There was like no breathing or anything. And I called the caretaker, my father, and they came in and they did a little prayer and stuff. But what took place after that was something that had totally caught me by surprise, which was they called 911. And again, Rinaldo's mother was, I imagine she was in her 90s also. And so at that point, a few minutes later, the fire trucks and the paramedics all show up with all the sirens going, and they came in and they asked me if there was any, what do they call? What did you call it?
A DNR or a pulse. Mm-hmm.
What's the stand for? The
DNR or a pulse.
Do not resuscitate. Yes. That's what he said to me. Does she have a do not resuscitate thing? And I said, I don't know, because I didn't know. I'm not in charge of her care. My mother-in-law is away. This is in the middle of the day. You just call emergency. What do you do? And the policeman, and I remember in this big, these guys usually are tall and big, at least in my culture, these guys are tall, big guys, and they come in and this fireman proceeded to grab her body and throw her in the floor and resuscitate her, and it was like, oh my God, it was like an assault to me, the way that the procedure had taken place, and then the policeman asked me and my son to step outside and started asking me questions and wanted to make sure there was no foul play. And, part of the job that they're supposed to be doing, right? And they took the body away. By the time, so my mother, in the interim, we called my mother-in-law, my Rinaldo's mom, and she came from work, rushed in, and the body is already gone. You know, and anyway, it was just a very different experience. And I think when I had that experience, I said, well, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen to my mother. Because it was ignorance, I think, more. I mean, it was more on our ignorance on our part than anything else. And at least I'm so happy that we had a chance to do something very different with my mom, where as she was transcending. I was there, and my sister came in from her work, and we were able to hold her hand and be there and say a prayer, and very, very different experience. And then we sat, some of the family members who came in at that time, we sat quietly and all of this, and kind of did our prayers and all of that. And the caseworker who was handling this for us also did her things to handle the closing, the mortuary and the time to pick it up, and all of these logistics. So we were fortunate she was there at that moment when that took place, so that some of those logistics kind of got handled, because in a moment where maybe you're not even thinking as to what you're supposed to be doing. So anyway, I thought I'd share a little bit about that experience, but thank you for your classes and putting this information out there. This is my experience of the two extremes, and how just by ignorance we don't even know what to do at times when our loved ones, or even for ourselves, it needs to happen, or we could have a more loving transition into our spiritual life. So
thank you so much. I've been sensing just like the last couple of weeks, and just seeing you beaming and then sharing a little bit here and there. So it's really nice to hear more of your process, and it just feels like it's such just filled with such light and grace. So thank you for sharing more about that. And I'm so happy that you had that experience with your mom, and that was, and that it's, every situation is different, but the more we know, the more empowered we are to, create an ending that we think that we would want for our loved one, even though we don't know exactly what our loved one needs. But peace and, peace, I guess, would always be good for, in my book, but I leave it up to what the person's soul needs. But you're demonstrating the value of having the conversations with the family members, even if you don't have a piece of paper. Really, paramedics need the piece of paper. If they have a do not resuscitate, then they don't have to do all the life-saving measures. But depending on the situation, it may be helpful just to go, look, yeah, she's 95 and she's not on hospice, but we know she wouldn't want that. So I think they take that into consideration, in general. So it's good to have those conversations with our loved ones. And then sometimes things happen that we don't know about. We don't know what's going to happen. I had one person, their loved one, they found him in the middle of the night and they weren't breathing. That was a surprise to everybody. It wasn't on hospice, wasn't like it was expected. So it passed away in the middle of the night, and their spouse is like, I got to call 911. So on the phone with 911, the operators are saying, get him to the floor, push him off the bed, get him to the floor, because if you're going to do CPR, that's the hard surface they need. And they were having a similar experience, like, well, this seems harsh. But that's, in just a practical sense, that the hard surface is purposeful for some people. So And when you have those conversations and you get someone on hospice in time, you never have to call 911. They pass away, right, in their home, and there's a lot of peace. So it's beautiful that you had that with your mom. Nancy Carter.
I'm appreciating what everyone's saying, so thank you. I think there's something wrong with my computer maybe, but I wasn't able to hear some of what was being said, but I could recognize it as valuable, whatever it was. My comment is about kind of following up on what Marita said. By the way, I'll start by saying there is one reason to call the paramedics in, because they're all tall, gorgeous young men, and it's a pleasure to have them in the house because you feel so safe when they're there. In my family, in the last 24 hours, I've been made aware once again of how ill prepared many families are for this, for the occasion of one of their loved ones passing away, and or passing into an altered state, which would be not able to make decisions for themselves and that kind of thing. I have 3 nieces. My brother had 3 daughters, and at this time, my oldest niece is dealing with the imminent passing of her father-in-law from Alzheimer's, and also having to take care of my brother and sister-in-law, because my sister-in-law has Alzheimer's and my brother has many things wrong with his body and is just barely kind of hanging on, taking care of himself and the 2 of them. And I'm basically in the field, that is, I've worked in this area for a long time. And so I have my ducks in a row. I have paid for already the way I want to be, quote, buried. And I have a DNR and so forth. In fact, I'm reminded, Marita, that it would be a good idea to do what Peggy Billars does, which is have all her paperwork right by the door, so that when paramedics do come in, they don't have to hunt around for a piece of paper. It's just right there for their official instruction. I don't have much more else to say at the moment. I love it that everyone is expressing their concerns and their experience, because it helps everybody, I think. So if I had anything more to say, I'll say it later. Thank you. God bless us all.
Thank you, Nancy. Yes, we are a wise group. Wise group.
Thank you for that.
Soli? Pronounce that right? There you are. Hi, honey. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm
There you
trying
go.
to get to the website where I can download the information on this heartfelt stuff that you talked about.
Okay.
I can't find it. I'm in the website right now.
So the heartfelt.org website?
Oh, it's called heartfelt.org.
I believe so. Yes, heartfelt.org.
Okay. I thought it was part of MSIA. Oh, okay. Heartfelt Foundation. All right. Thank you.
And then at the top, it says resources.
Uh-huh.
If you click on that, at the very bottom of that drop down, it says Navigating Aging with Dr. Cheryl.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
And then it's got Navigating Aging recordings. So those are our past weeks
Recordings.
discussions. And then at the bottom where it says resources, there's lists and sample things that we've talked about. So that would be a good place to poke around.
Okay. Checklist of life information for executive trustee. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
sure. Munyon?
Hi there. Apologies for not turning on my camera, but just following up
Okay.
on what Nancy said, I am very ill prepared for our final days. And also following up on what John said is what a pleasure it is to enjoy someone in an altered state of consciousness. I'm not there with my husband. And if there's any kind of TWA, that can help me, it's not that bad. One of the tips I have during dinner is rather than having him ask me the same question after I answer him, and it would be a repeat conversation throughout the dinner, I've been playing Baroque music from my YouTube because I hear that that's really good. And he loves it. And he's 81 and he loves rock and roll. So I'll play rock and roll. And just recently, I saw a post on Facebook about a book called The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. And luckily, I went to my library and I could get the recording right away. And so I played that for him and he was enthralled. And then I found Oprah did 6 episodes with him, Dr. Verghese, and discussed each section of the book in depth. And he's been just happy, happy, happy because he's a former writer and he loves listening, and as do I. But where I get in trouble is, besides doing the shopping and doing the food and paying the bills, I don't have my end of life papers ready, and I don't know how to do banking very well. I think we have too much money in just the same bank, and I get very, very annoyed and irritated, and I thought he handled those things when he was who he used to be, but it turns out he never handled those things either. So we were both living sort of like the tarot cards fool. And now I'm kind of trying to clean things up. And I would like to get on Peggy's waiting list if this is something she does for ministry. I don't know. Just any kind of paperwork just turns me around the bend. And last night he ran out of a med, his statin. And normally he likes to take a walk to the pharmacy because it's walking distance and pick it up. But he told me he lost his keys. And I said, okay, I'll get your meds. But after all this happiness with the book, the music, the good meals, he's been in despair all night and all day because he thinks something's terribly wrong with him. Now, he's always been in denial about everything, and he doesn't believe he has anything going on that's unusual. So that's my story for now. That's the snapshot. So there were some good things, and I hope I was able to share some good tips. But I also would like to get on Peggy's waiting list, and I did sign up for Dr. Karen Josephson for the year. So, and at some point, I'd love to sign you up too, Dr. Cheryl, just because I don't know when the end is. And that scares me. And I just had to go to urgent care yesterday because I thought maybe I had COVID or pneumonia. But the good news was I have bronchitis, and it's been going on for 14 days. And you know, I don't get any taken care of. And so I'm sorry, I didn't know this was going to happen, but I love you guys, and thank you so much, Cheryl and Nancy. You know, the two of you are host and co-host, and thank you, Peggy, for doing this thing as your ministry. And after listening to the sharing, it just gave me the courage to talk when I normally don't do that. So God bless us all. Thank you.
Well, we're all sending you lots of love and light, and that's exactly why we're here together. We can know that we've got support, and sometimes there's answers, and sometimes there's just lots of love. Loving is the answer. And I know Peggy's got her hand up, so I'll. You know, she's made an offer to me for the group, but I'll let her speak to her for herself as far as what Peggy's offering for her ministry. And John wrote his email and phone number down in the chat, Munyon, if you'd like to reach out to him.
Thank you. I'll take a screenshot.
Okay. All right. And if you need it later, let us know. And also, I'll just say it here that if anybody, needs support or has questions, comments, you can always email us at serve@heartfelt.org. serve@heartfelt.org. And then they can get that email to me too if you need me or if anybody else on the call. Sending light. Peggy.
Hi, everybody. I just put my email and my phone number in the chat. 3 things. I would be indeed happy to help any of you that need assistance with either figuring how to gather information. Also, I would be happy to do documents for any of you, just simple documents in Microsoft Word or signs, whatever you need. I would be more than happy to help you. And I would just do it electronically, send it to you, and then delete it off my computer. So, this has all come to me through my own experience, and that's why I've created specific checklists and etc. So please call or email me if you need support. It's one of my loving parts of my ministry to be able to give back. So that's number 1. Number 2, Cheryl, you mentioned last week that there was a book called Being Mortal, and I knew that I'd heard about that. Well, there is a beautiful documentary called Being Mortal by the doctor who wrote that book. And he shares about his own experience of, having to he's a surgeon, having to have those discussions with family and with people who may be nearing the end of their life, but is having a hard time. And as well as he interviews other doctors and patients share their experience of aging, looking at the end of life. So I will send those to you, Cheryl. And then if you want to post them on the Heartfelt, that would be great. It's a beautiful documentary. And then finally, I just want to personally share my own experience, especially after last week's class. I just realized that that aging, looking at coming to the end of one's life or having to have those talks, making decisions on physical level stuff, dementia. I just realized again that it's a very, I want to say complex, and not in a negative way, but there's so many, in my experience, so many levels to that, both inward and outward, both with myself. And I personally have had experience taking care of 3 of my family members, my mom in particular for about 10 years. And, you know, I just have so much love for this area. And I personally have found it so profound and a blessing to be able to participate with people in this way. I've had the blessing of being with 4 people as they passed. And I don't know, there's just something in me that is just very touched about this whole area. And I'm very grateful that I've been given an opportunity to participate with all of us human beings, you know, as we navigate this area. So I love you all. Please, you know, reach out if you need any support.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for your generosity, sharing your wisdom and your expertise with the group regarding this too. Grateful that you are here. Summer.
Hello, I just wanted to add that as far as being prepared, I have on my windshield visor in my car, what to do in case of an emergency, in my pocket, and also on my refrigerator, most specifically who to call to take care of my pets. Because if I'm gone, I'm okay, but you know, they need to be fed. And I just wanted to share that idea. Thank you.
That sounds great. We've been talking about where to leave those documents so that people will find them when we need them to find them.
Yeah, I'm figuring
And that's a good idea.
If I'm in a car, you know, granted it's going to be in my pocket, but they're, you know, they'll see it right then and there. It's big, highlighted yellow, what to do in case of an emergency, my son's name, my neighbor's name, to call my, you know, call my neighbor, you know, to feed my cats. That's what I'm worried about.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that tip.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Peggy.
I just want to share one more thing talking about where to put documents. And I just came across this week. You know, I have the hospital paramedic, you know, all those documents that I have at my house. And I was driving around and I went, oh my gosh, you know, what if I was driving and had an emergency? So I'm going to now make them and keep them in my car so that if I go into a doctor's office or if, you know, something would happen, I'd have them in my car. So I just wanted to add that.
Sounds good. And you just want to, I think, be careful with your personal information. You know, it's sort of like I've heard, don't leave your car registration in your car because if it gets broken into and they get your address and things like that. So I don't know if I'd leave it in your car all the time if it has personal information in, but yes, like having it with you some way. It's almost like we need to invent that. If it's not, because I don't know of it, if it is a thing yet, like where paramedics know to look every time they look somewhere. You know, pretty soon we'll have a chip in our head that has all that information. They can just scan us, but
Well, you know, it's an old thing here, Susan here, that these things go on your refrigerator. And there's like a little plastic pouch and there's the life, I forgot what it's called, the life something. I haven't filled this one out where I live. I'm really bad about this stuff, but also if you've been to the hospital before and had anything done, most likely you have given them an end of life instruction, and they have that in your record, even if you don't know that you've done that. So you might want to check that too. Yeah. And also your phone is, if it's not locked, your phone can have all kinds of information in it. You know, you could put stars on your family, or you know what I mean? You can set it up. Oh, here I am, and I know that I'm like bad.
Yeah. In case I'm dead, call.
Yeah, it's just one more thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. There on your phone, there's I've seen it under, you keep it under ICE, ICE, in case of emergency. So, and that, I believe those numbers will come up even if your phone is locked.
Right, I think so. You know, also my kids, my sons, well, one of them is very technical. He works for Comcast. He has it so that he gets through to me, even if nobody else can. And you can arrange that on your phone, or have them arrange it so that even if your phone is off, they will get you. I don't mean shut off, but you know, all the, you know, stuff.
If your notifications are off, or if you're in quiet mode, you could set up certain numbers to get through.
Yeah, so I'm putting my grandson on that. I'm letting him do that now too.
That's the best. That's what our 16-year-old is for. I said, I'll teach you the old stuff and you teach me the new stuff. Let me fix my phone stuff. Yes, we did talk. We've talked before about the, you know, it was a thing, like put your DNR and the information that you'd want to take to the hospital, you put it on your refrigerator, like you're saying, or it used to be like in the freezer in a tube. And then like put it by your door. So, you know, I think I'm gonna do this to find out, because what my suggestion is to call your local paramedics, like the firehouse that would actually come to your house, and say, where do you guys look? And then put it there. Because they may have that your local area may have an area that they look. Just do the best you can and talk to the people that will be helping you make those decisions. And I'll be okay. Thank you, Susan. Karen. And thank you, Karen, for co-hosting and helping me with the recording and all the Zooms every week. Thank you.
Of course. It's my honor and privilege. Okay, I have two things to say. One, my mother will be 80 in April, and she lives alone, and she had this incredible fear that she'd be dead on the floor for several days before anybody would know about it. And so I asked her if she would like to set something up where we had contact every day. I'm not willing to go over there every day, but we've set it up so that we text each other every morning. It's the first text I get generally in the morning, and she'll just, you know, say something random and I'll say something random back. And then it's like, she's alive, I'm alive, everybody's good. And I think it just gives her a little bit of extra peace of mind. So if that is helpful to anyone, it's simple and easy to keep up with. And then the second thing I was wondering, because I'm somebody who often doesn't do something unless I have some accountability. And I've heard a number of people over the last few weeks say, you know, I'm so bad about getting the paperwork together, or I need to do the paperwork, or I have so many things on my list of things that I just haven't done. And so I was wondering if anybody on this call thinks, hey, it would be really great if one week we all just came with the paperwork and sat here and did it together and just in community. If that might be supportive, I know that kind of collaboration and accountability works well for me. So I love you guys. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Karen. Arlene Stepatat and I did a 2-part workshop that I believe is still video. It's taped. And where is that? It might be on the Heartfelt site. I could try to find it, but we led people through filling out the Advanced Directive Living Will, the 5 wishes. But I was also thinking about doing it as one of these navigating aging weeks. If people want to do that, I'm getting a thumbs up. So yeah, it's a great idea. Thank you, Karen. Hi, Judith.
I guess what I was going to say something like that, Cheryl, because I've done the 5 wishes protocol with Arlene, and then I've also facilitated the Joyful Transitions class.
Oh, yes.
That was very meaningful for me as well, and for all those who attended. That we did that in Kalamazoo one year, and but nevertheless, things change every year, and yes, I find that being in a support group to write things out and to follow that up would be wonderful. So I have mine that needs to be upgraded, and things that we changed, in the will this year, and those things come about. But also I want to mention my nephew is the director of the ambulance services in our town in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and he said just have it doesn't have to be, just have something available that's visible that you have out so that they have a message, and sign it, have your brothers, have somebody sign it with you or such. But he said, just something is so helpful. And he came and spoke to us, and in our town, that ambulance service has their little card that they like you to post. So that may be available in any community you're in, is that through the ambulance service, who wants to be able to do a good job when they get to your house if you're needed, then they like to have something that's sitting out that it isn't too difficult to find. So yeah, on the refrigerators where I've always heard it. So we even have a file folder that clicks onto the refrigerator. It's a file holder. You can stick any paper in there. And that's one thing that I've done, but also they have their own form that we have them, under the magnet, with a good magnet on the refrigerator. So I guess that's a good visual place for most homes. I don't know if anyone else has an idea about that, but also in the car, I think that's important that I forget who mentioned that, but yeah, in the car, my husband and I, we're on the road a lot. So yeah, what do we have? And then my husband says, well, it's all in the cloud. I go, oh yeah, hooray. that is not my first avenue of being successful. Okay, how do I get to the cloud? So,
right.
Anyway, all that medical, and Susan's got family that's very mechanical on the phone and such, but that's meaningful, and I know it is, but I don't have clear avenue. We were talking about today. I said I saw him pouring his medication. I said, no, Neil, if I needed to know if someone needed to know your medication, how would I get to it? He said, oh, it's in the cloud. I'm like, okay. I know I'm supposed to know the way to do that, but I haven't practiced. So anyway,
right.
I appreciate just, a grouping that says, okay, now this is what I've done, or this is what I've found how to do it, or I'll tell you how to get in the cloud. I'm like, but please do, it just sounds like so far away. And it's supposed to be immediately accessible.
Right.
So, yeah, I just had fun with that. But
yeah, that's really funny. Yeah, we have for our family, we have a shared Google Doc. So, and it's in a family folder.
Oh.
So we have, our driver's license, our passports. It could be like if we were on medication, could be there, like anything that if one of us needed it, we could just go there and it would all be there. But then, right. Yeah. So that the tricky thing, a shared Google Doc, you could do that. And then the tricky thing is, there's a million scenarios of what could happen, right? So what if something happens to me and my whole family together? And then Nobody knows where the Google Doc is. Or then what happens if they don't remember, someone knows we have a Google Doc, but doesn't have the password. I mean, that you could think of a million things, and sometimes that leads us to do nothing. Like, well, I might as well just do nothing because it's not going to be exact. But as long as we do something, if we can have the conversations with the people that are important to us, if we could have the medication lists and the contact list and doctor's list somewhere, because most times, even though it seems like it could be a needle in a haystack, those documents are found, and it does end up helping. Like, oh, I have my documents at home, but I'm out in the car. Well, it'll all work out. So just do the best you can. I wish there was one thing. There are some companies that will store your important information online now, and I've actually thought of starting something like that. Like, fill out your will and trust and contact information and insurance and all that, and store it on their website. So if you go to a hospital, the idea would be that your loved ones would just access that website and have all your documents there. So there are options. You just got to figure out which one feels best to you. The cloud, it sounds to you like, that seems way far away. Maybe you need a physical piece of paper. So whatever works for you, to get but the important thing is to have the information, and then to have the conversations with your loved ones, and do your best to have the information available for the people who'll need it. And then, I think most people, being human, think, well, it's never going to happen to me. I'm not old enough. If that's, we think, oh, you have to be a certain age or a certain frailty, because like, I'm not going to have that kind of thing on my refrigerator now. Nothing's going to happen to me. I mean, if we knew when we were going to need it, and like the day before, then we're like, okay, today's the day I'm going to put it in my refrigerator because tomorrow I'm going to need, that the paramedics are going to be here and I'm going to need it. That doesn't usually happen. So again, if
we, as ministers in our community, and I'm assuming there are mostly ministers here in the group, but as ministers in the community, we tried to create a network, and we did the 5 wishes, and we knew our friend had put the 5 wishes on her computer, and you know what? She passed suddenly, and nothing was accessible. We couldn't get to it, and we took turns supporting where her body was in her home until her family arrived, and they really, and they quite abruptly asked us to leave. And so we had held light with her as best we could, and they wanted to know, they didn't have anything either, and all I could say is I know her 5 wishes were complete, and that we had done this together, and she'd put it online, and no one had access to get into it. So anyway, I wanted to share that ministers together could have access with each other as well. That was a network we had initiated.
Yeah, what a great idea. Yeah. It's a brilliant idea. And then, I just have to trust that how it works out is just fine. We have the best laid plans, and then, it works out how it works out. Sometimes a family will come in and they just are going to do their thing. It's like, okay, it works out. There's too many scenarios that we can't make exactly our vision happen in the way that we might think it would happen ahead of time, but we can just do the best we can. Thanks for sharing that, Judith. Okay, lovely people. It's been a pleasure being with you. I love you. Hopefully we'll see you next week, and we'll talk about something fun. The topics I have potentially are talking about dementia, filling the 5 wishes out, self-care for the caregivers. So if you have any, those are the things that came to my mind during our talk here. So if you have anything that you'd like to talk about, email us at serve@heartfelt.org. All right. Love you. Have a great week.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you,
Thank
Cheryl.
you.
Thank you, everyone else.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.